Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name's Rhiannon and today I'm very excited to be filming my January TBR because it is of course the first TBR of 2024. I am honestly so excited to go into this new year, especially as it means that we are getting a fresh start, and I'm so excited to see what 2024 is going to bring. Now, I do have some bookish goals that I would like to hit this year. The first of those is of course my Goodreads goal. I have gone ahead and put this up to 80 this year. Normally I start off my reading goal as 52 just because I feel like that is a manageable number for me. It's an achievable number, especially with my job as a teacher. I do find it difficult to make time to read sometimes, and with a lot of life stuff that has happened recently, I just really haven't been prioritizing reading. So the fact that I've put it up to 80 is a little bit scary, but I read 76 this year and I feel like with a push I definitely could hit 80. So I've gone the more ambitious route. I'm hoping that is actually achievable for me, but some of my other goals may actually end up hindering that. So my second goal this year is to prioritize quality over quantity. You'll see from this TBR that I do have some chunky books on there already, and I feel like a lot of the books I'm planning to read throughout the year are going to be bigger, denser, adult high fantasy books, which may throw a spanner in the works, but honestly, if it does, it's fine. I will lower my goal. I just feel like I need to figure out my reading pace first throughout the maybe first third of the year so that I can then look back at it and see whether I need to adjust my reading goal or not, because I don't want it to be a stressful factor for me. I want it to be enjoyable. I want to have that challenge, but I also don't want it to turn into something that I really don't enjoy. But with me now aiming to prioritize bigger books, that may ultimately become a problem down the line. But for now, I'm feeling optimistic. We'll see how it goes. And then the last goal that I'm going to talk about here is that I actually want to prioritize series. I have been really bad this year at finishing off series. I've been starting a lot of them and then I've just been, I don't want to say losing interest, but I have been putting them down and picking other books up instead. And so this year a goal of mine is to prioritize the series that I have already started or I am planning to read, because I tend to get overwhelmed with the amount of series that I have. A lot of books that I own are parts of series. I'm a person that tends to buy the series first and then binge them, just because I feel like I retain a lot more information that way. I'm in the world a lot longer that way, and if I have to wait a year between all these books coming out, it's going to pull me out of the world and I'm not going to get that full experience. So I am hoping that I can carry on with a lot of series that I own. I do think I'm going to make a video all about the series that I would like to prioritize this year, so if that's something you would like to see, please do let me know down in the comments. But you'll see from this TBR that I have tried to incorporate my goals into this stack, and I feel like that's how it's going to be moving forward as well. Without further ado though, let's dive into the exciting part, which is the books that I plan on reading throughout this first month. Diving straight on in at the deep end, we have The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first book in the Mistborn series. This is part of a trilogy that is then a part of a very expansive world by Brandon Sanderson. I have actually read this before, but I never got past this first book. I finished this off, I loved it, I give it 5 stars, and then, yeah, as I mentioned, something else took priority, and then I just didn't carry on with the rest of the books in this trilogy, and I have had a desperate itch these last few months to pick up another Brandon Sanderson book. I've read Elantris by him as well and just fell in love with it. They are so intricately detailed. Everything is connecting to each other, and I know that once you get to Oathbringer as well, that apparently it just blows your mind how interconnected everything is. But if you couldn't tell, this is a very chunky adult high fantasy book, and in this one we are at the centre of a very beaten down society. We have a Lord Ruler who is essentially like an emperor of sorts. He seems to be immortal and he seems to be untouchable, and then under him we have basically whoever is rich enough to be in power, and then everyone else is basically slaves. They are called Scar, and for thousands of years the Scar have lived in poverty. They've been treated like slaves, they've been expected to work till the death basically, and they just don't have any freedom or human rights. However, a new kind of uprising is being planned. We have a kind of mastermind in here called Kelsier, who tried to defeat the Lord Ruler once but was thrown into the pits, and he is actually the only known survivor of the pits. He somehow managed to escape and is now planning a big uprising. And it just says here, a new kind of uprising is being planned, one that depends on the cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind and the courage of an unlikely heroine, a Scar street urchin. who must learn to master allomancy, the power of a Mistborn. What if the prophesized hero had failed to defeat the Dark Lord? The answer will be found in the Mistborn trilogy, a saga of surprises that begins here. So that in itself sounds so amazing, but what really drew me to this is the allomancy element to it, because in this world you can ingest metals, and depending on which metal you ingest, it can give you certain abilities. Now there is a very rare ability that really doesn't happen to a lot of people called Mistborn, and that means that you can burn 8 metals. Normally you could only do 1, but if you're a Mistborn you have the power to control all 8, and of course our main character is a Mistborn, and I'm so excited to see where this takes them and how it plays into where we go from here. As I mentioned, I have read this one before, but it was, I want to say, like 3 years ago now. I really can't remember all that much about it. All I know is that I had such a good time. It's an emotional roller coaster. I do remember what happens at the end, and I'm not really that prepared for it, but I'm very excited to be starting off my Brandon Sanderson journey properly now, and yeah, I can't wait to dive into the Cosmere and read all of the books essentially. So this is the first book on my TBR. Very excited to get to it. I do have it on my Kindle as well, so that will be less intimidating for me to read, which I feel like is definitely helpful. But this is over 640 pages and I'm definitely intimidated. Moving on to my second book, this is definitely a different vibe. It's a lot shorter, which I'm happy about, and you may have seen this on a TBR a few months ago. I can't quite remember when I featured it, but one of my goals for last year was to read 1 Agatha Christie book a month. I did pretty well with that. I don't think I actually stick to it, but this is the latest one that I need to read. The only problem I had with this one is that I essentially listen to all of my Agatha Christie books on audio. Most of them are available on Everand, which is how I've been consuming them, but when I went to find this one, it had been taken off. So I've just put it off because I really just didn't want to read it physically for some reason. I feel like it does take a lot of brain power to read these ones because they are such complex murder mysteries. You do really have to know what's going on, and you really do have to make sure that you pay attention. So the fact that I don't have the audiobook is a little bit of a bummer, but I do want to put it on this TBR. I would like to get to it just so that I can make some progress in these books once again, because I have just hit a wall with them. All that I know about this one is that we are following a couple, and one day the wife says that she wishes her husband would die, and once you know it, the husband does soon die, but Poirot doesn't actually think that the wife is behind it. After all, how could she have stabbed Lord Edgware to death when she was seen at the same time having tea with her friends? I feel like this is going to be a very interesting murder mystery. I don't know if it's a locked room mystery, but he was stabbed to death in his library, so who knows, but I'm very excited to dive into this one. I feel like it'll be a nice break between all of the different fantasy books that I want to get to. Hopefully I can find the audio to this though. I just love listening to the story, especially as Hugh Fraser, who plays Captain Hastings in the ITV adaptations of Agatha Christie's works, is the narrator, and he just does a fantastic job. He knows these characters inside out, so I would like to find that one if I could. But either way, it's on my TBR. I'm hoping I can get to it possibly before I go back to work, because I don't think I would be prioritizing it afterwards just because of how many books I have left. But yeah, very excited for this one, and hopefully it will be a very quick and compelling book. I'm going to group the next 2 books that I want to read together because they are part of the same series. The 3rd book in the series is being released at the end of January, so I have very ambitious plans to read House of Earth and Blood and House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. Now, I am being realistic here. I don't expect to read all of these. I don't know if you can see, I have started House of Earth and Blood. My bookmark is in there. I have gotten up to page 543, so I don't actually have too much longer of this to go. I did start rereading it at some point last year, I want to say, in preparation for House of Sky and Breath. And then I never got around to the second book either, so I definitely need to get a move on with this. I would like to finish this one off, as I mentioned, and then pick up the second book, which is even more chunky. I don't know how that's possible, and it scares me, but I feel like I missed out on the hype for this one, and I would like to be in on the hype when the third book comes out. Is that one House of Flame and Shadow? I want to say. I may be wrong, but I've had to kind of avoid everything to do with this series because I've not read the second book yet, and yeah, with the third book being out, I feel like spoilers spoilers are just going to come from every single direction, and I really do need to be prepared. I think for this one I will just read you the synopsis. I feel like a lot of you will already know what Crescent City is about, but it's been a while since I actually read this first book, which isn't great, but I feel like I kind of remember the main points. I just want to brush up my understanding of the world and the character relationships again and where we left off. But it does just say here, Bryce Quinlan used to light up Crescent City, partying all night in the clubs where the straight classes of angel, shifter, human and fae merge into a sea of beautiful bodies. And then a demon murdered her closest friends. 2 years later, when the supposed killer is behind bars but the crimes start up again, the city's leaders command Bryce to help investigate. They assign an enslaved fallen angel hunt Athalar to make sure she does. But as Bryce fights to uncover the truth and resist her attraction to the brooding angel who shadows her every step, she finds herself following a trail that leads deep into her own dark past. I will of course not be saying anything about book 2 because I don't know anything about book 2. Not gonna lie, I am definitely scared because I haven't heard the best things. People have said that it's very slow and the ending is just a bit crazy, so I feel like that's why I've been putting it off. I just know it's going to take so much time to read this one, and if the payoff isn't there then I'm going to be so upset. But saying that, I am going to have the next book then to dive straight into, so we'll see. I am definitely being ambitious. I'm hoping I can do it, guys, but even if I have to take this into February, I don't mind it too much. As long as I finish House of Earth and Blood this time round, I will be happy, and then we'll see whether House of Sky and Breath makes it onto this TBR or next month's. And then the last two books that I have are both continuations of separate series. The first one is Capturing the Devil by Kerri Maniscalco, and this is the fourth and final book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. This is a series I started in September or October last year. I really did love it. I had such an amazing time with it. I had read the first book previously, I want to say about 2-3 years ago, but on reread I feel like I just loved it even more. For those of you who don't know, in this series we follow Audrey Rose, who is a woman living in 19th century London. Of course, she is expected to play the role of a woman at that time, which is to stay at home, entertain people, and to practice her embroidery. However, when her mother ends up dying, she trades in her embroidery needles for an autopsy scalpel, and she decides to apprentice under her uncle to study forensic science and the biology of the human body. So when a string of murders start happening around London and they are all attributed to a man known as Jack the Ripper, Audrey Rose is thrown into the investigation and she does everything that she can to bring this person to justice. But as she gets deeper into the investigation, she soon finds that it could lead closer to home than she first thought. This is a fantastic series. I really do love it. I didn't enjoy the third book as much, which is Escaping from Houdini. I thought that one was a little bit too far-fetched for me, and we had a lot of different character interactions that I felt like weren't really matching up to what we've been told about the characters previously. So I am interested to see where it's going to go in this last book, but I'm rooting for certain characters. We do have a male love interest in here, but he is genuinely like the sweetest person ever. He is so kind and caring, but he's also like dark and brooding. He is funny. He challenges Audrey Rose to be the best version of herself, and he never restricts her, which is something I really do appreciate. And I just feel like it's such a lovely, healthy depiction of a relationship, and I can't wait to see what goes on in this one, because I believe that in this one we are focusing on H.H. Holmes, who, if you don't know, is responsible for building his murder castle and killing a load of people. If you've watched American Horror Story Hotel, it's basically inspired off of H.H. Holmes. So my true crime brain is going to love this one, hopefully. I find it so fascinating and interesting to see how they are tackled in these books, and I feel like Kerri Maniscalco does a very good job. An element that I love about these books as well is that we do actually get illustrations and photographs throughout that kind of go with the book and the story. So there we have a letter, which is very interesting. Try not to spoil myself too much, but we have, I just saw a map somewhere. Yeah, we have some sort of map, and there are just really cool snippets in here that go with the corresponding chapter, and they just enhance the reading experience so much. So this is one that I am very excited to dive into, but I have just been putting it off because it is the last book in a series and I don't want the series to end. And then finally we have the last book of this TBR. I honestly feel like I'm going to be way too overwhelmed. But we have Crystal Storm by Morgan Rhodes, which is the 5th book in the Fallen Kingdom series. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I did plan to have this series finished out by the end of 2023. However, of course, that didn't happen. We are into 2024 now, but I would like to get back on it with these books. I took a break from this series for some reason. I think one of the books took me like 3 months to read, and that put me in a bit of a slump, as you can imagine. But I really do want to continue on with it because I read book 4 in September, possibly October, and I really did enjoy that one. I flew through it. I felt like the story moved along a lot quicker. And now we're getting to the final 2 books. We are going to have all of the conflict and hopefully a resolution of sorts. And I feel like all the work I've put into reading these books so far is going to be worth it, guys. So I have put this one onto January's TBR. Whether or not I will get to it, I'm not too sure. Maybe this is another one that might be pushed back because of different reading priorities that I have. But it would be nice to finally get through this one. I feel like this has been on my TBR for so long. I've just been staring at it on my shelves and it's been staring back. So yeah, I will be very happy to read this one and see where we go in this book. I of course can't tell you too much about this one in particular, again, because it is the 5th book in a series, but this is a series that is often compared to a Game of Thrones, but for young adult readers. It is very gory and gruesome, but we are following 4 main characters in particular. We have Cleo, Lucia, Jonas and Magnus, and they are from different countries, but an oncoming war means that they all are thrust together and have to face some very difficult choices that will either aid in this war or will mean that they will have to stand against it. Of course, because of that, we have a lot of political intrigue, but the element that I am most fascinated by is the magic system. We have Elementia in here, which means that we have magic relating to the 4 elements, which are water, fire, earth and air. And there was a prophecy a long time ago that said that a sorceress would awaken that could harness the 4 elements and use its power to awaken the kindred. Now, the kindred is basically the source of all magic, and throughout the years it has been declining. It has been growing weaker and weaker, and everyone is waiting for this sorceress because without it, magic will disappear from the realm and will be lost forever. And so we have Watchers, who are immortal beings that live separate to where our characters are at. They are basically in like an immortal realm somewhere, but if they come to the human world, they can take the form of hawks, and so they do keep an eye out and listen out for any information about the sorceress, and one day it seems like what they've been waiting for all of these years is coming true. That's all I'm going to say. I feel like I say a lot about this series every single time I talk about it, but it is a very addicting YA fantasy that you will probably fly through. As I mentioned, the last book, or the 3rd book, was a bit of a weird one for me where it took me so long to read it, but the other ones were definitely very easy to fly through, and I am excited to see what happens in this one. So there we have it, guys. This is my very ambitious TBR for January of 2024. Whether or not I will be able to read all of these is up for debate, but I am happy to have them on my TBR now. I have a goal to work towards, and as I mentioned, it doesn't matter too much about House of Sky and Breath, but I would like to get to all of the other ones and finish them out this month. Please do let me know your spoiler-free thoughts on any of these books if you have read them. I love chatting to you guys about the books that I plan on reading in the comments, and it definitely helps sway the reading order in which I get to them. If you have made it this far through into the video and would like to let me know that you're still here, please go ahead and leave me a storm emoji down in the comments. There is currently a massive storm outside as I'm filming this, and the last book I showed you was called Crystal Storm, so I feel like that is a good emoji to sum up this video. I know I say it all the time, but seeing you guys comment the emoji of the video truly does mean the world to me. It baffles me that you guys watch these all the way through, so if you don't have anything in particular that you would like to say but you would like to let me know that you're still here, please do go ahead and comment that now. As well as that, please don't forget to click the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button if you'd like to see more content from me. But that is it for me today, guys. Thank you once again for watching, and I will see you soon in my next video. Goodbye!